Hello, 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 and welcome. Tonight we are going to talk about the often discussed, often misunderstood dynamic of the portal. Going to cover some things tonight to address for the high school parents. Want to remind everyone, wherever, whenever you're watching this particular video, please, if you're on another platform, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., could you please go over to the YouTube channel and hit the thumbs up? Before we do anything, just hit a thumbs up, create engagement, and then also subscribe. Approximately 2,000 members away from 20,000 subscribers. I appreciate all of the people that have subscribed, people that send me questions. But I'd like for you to make sure that you hit the subscription button. And then last but not least, create your baseball blue book profile. I have parents that ask me, too young, too old, there's no such animal. Anything and everything to do with baseball or softball is going to be located in the baseball blue book. So take a minute, download the app, create your profile. Had the opportunity to speak to some college coaches this week, and all of them really spoke highly of the new changes that are going on with the Blue Book and the profiles that are being created. So don't miss your opportunity to get in front of some coaches and kind of create some awareness. We're going to talk about some of those topics tonight. It is a live, so if you have a question, you're over on Facebook, you're on YouTube, I encourage you to submit a question. Let me know what topic you'd like me to discuss. Tonight, for the most part, I feel that a lot of parents and student athletes feel threatened by the college baseball, the transfer portal, the older athletes. And I'm going to really carry, you know, forward some information that I've discussed with a lot of the college coaches. This week, worked with a lot of portal athletes, worked with a lot of portal families, college coaches that are looking for particular positions, particular pieces of the lineup with regard to top of the order, middle of the order, et cetera, left-handed hitting. But I really want to begin tonight by saying that we are no longer in a one-size-fits-all. We have reverted back. As a lot of coaches are saying, that which was once old is new again. And what we in the industry have to make sure that you as parents and obviously high school student athletes understand is what used to be where the athletes would focus on that longer period of time for development, physical maturity, and then kind of find their way to college camps or recruiting coordinators as seniors in high school has really returned. And so I talked to a lot of parents that have done, that I've worked with that have recently completed their postgraduate year and now are preparing for their upcoming fall with regard to college baseball. And, they really feel as if that extra year truly benefited their athletes in a myriad of different ways over and above just baseball. For instance, being able to do laundry, having roommates, etc. So there's a lot of different routes now that high school athletes can take. And I think it's important. Nobody is dismissing. In fact, college coaches, almost to a man, go out of their way to make sure that they get out there, that, they are still actively recruiting the high school athlete. But it's from a developmental standpoint, there's not as much time as far as going into the development portion, because most student athletes now want to get in and get going. They don't want to be on that bench. They take it as a negative. And I think that's really the starting point for this discussion. And I want to make sure I say hello to everybody. Thank you, Will. Logan, thank you very much. And I know, Logan, you're doing great things down at Cressy. Let's see. Keith, how you doing, Keith? So here's the number one thing. Like right now, today is the last day for the portal, July 1st. And so a lot of coaches are on pins and needles. Are they going to keep all their players? Do any athletes want to test the portal? And, there's about 7,000 athletes that have gone into the portal. And, several have found new homes, but for the vast majority, they haven't. And it's a frustrating experience because we're talking about athletes that are big, strong, durable, have a resume, and they're not getting the calls that they thought they might have. The other piece to this puzzle is college coaches have to wait for the MLB draft, which is coming up, in the next 2 weeks. And then I believe the last day of the draft is July 14th. And so that's when coaches are going to find out who entered, who got selected in the draft. Are they going to sign? So this is a very tumultuous time for athletes as well as coaches. But let's start with the high school student athletes. There is nobody to blame. This isn't a blame game. Coaches aren't trying to penalize high school players. Parents, your athletes are not being pushed down or neglected. In fact, the reality is that the rabbit that the vast majority of athletes have chased for so long, because the perception has always been, going to certain tournaments, going to certain events, and college recruiting would happen, whether it was a sophomore or, junior. Now those days are pretty much gone with regard to recruiting. There is some identifying. There is some, kind of look and follow. And what they're following is progression. So let's start with, we have nothing to fear. If you're a younger high school student athlete, your priority is pretty clear. It's to get your body prepared. And also, almost every coach starts to talk about the lack of baseball IQ. And so really watching more baseball games at the higher levels. Obviously, college season is behind us. Now you can watch minor league games, you can watch major league games. But, baseball IQ is another big aspect and dynamic that a lot of us, we don't spend enough time discussing. And so what I want families to understand is it's imperative that you as a family, obviously your student athlete, the onus is on your student athlete, is to truly educate yourself and to get informed. Because even the big horses that are currently in the portal stable, for lack of a better metaphor, they're having a challenging time. I have catchers that are 3-hole hitters, that 15, 20 home run type hitters, and they're not finding an automatic home. I think it's important to understand that we're still awaiting the final number of schools that opted in, to the settlement. But here's a little tidbit I picked up today that I think parents need to really fully comprehend. And that is, I get so much pushback on this topic. And I want to be clear, I don't make this stuff up. I have a lot of dialogue with coaches. I respect their privacy. Certainly not going to come out here and, start to tell me and drop names. I don't think that does anyone any good. But I will tell you, there is a massive Title IX component. And I say that with regard to the DSA, the designated student athlete. A lot of people are trying to tell you that, oh, yeah, teams are going to load up on the DSA, and that's not accurate, because you have to remember the roster spots have to have a matching spot with the Title IX component to a female sport. Now, in the Big Ten, they have a lot of unique sports that aren't kind of concern to the Southern schools or possibly the West Coast schools, but you have a lot of winter sports in the Big Ten. So I just want parents to understand, anyone that tells you that these schools are going to load up and designated student athletes and everybody's going to find a home, it's not quite that way. So on that topic, I really hope that parents are taking the time to educate and become better informed. And so here's the pathway for younger athletes. Eighth grade through your junior year, really want you to understand you can spend more time with regard to individual development, playing locally. I have a young man from Virginia. He's on his way to Air Force Academy. A couple years ago, we began to work together, his parents and myself, and we put together a game plan. And one of the first things we did was create a strength program, a routine. We kept things local. He got up certain hour of the day. He, had a strength training, speed training, skill set development. He kind of took accountability, played locally, played American Legion, and really elevated himself and really became a recruited student athlete at schools like Columbia and Cornell, Naval Academy, and ultimately he chose the Air Force Academy. But we created that plan a couple of years ahead of time. So, the sophomore, junior, leading into the senior year, which he just completed, was his individual approach to recruiting. And I think more parents are going to begin to do that. Let's see, too many players. Very good. Okay, I think this is from Coach in Connecticut. Here's the other part of this equation. With regard to your individual plan, it's really an understanding of who your student athlete is as an individual. Like, what are they all about outside of baseball? Meaning, what are their academic areas of interest? If they're young and you don't really have an idea, do they have other hobbies? Do they have other interests? Are they a big city type of young student? Are they a small rural? Do they hunt? Do they fish? Things like that. And creating an environment and an awareness of where your student athlete will potentially fit as you begin to grow, as you begin to mature and go through the different grades. I think that's really step one of this process. Step two, from a baseball perspective, and Coach said this very eloquently, Baseball U, watching more baseball, and playing with that type of information in mind, meaning knowing situations, both offensively and defensively, preparing for the ball to be hit to you. I get asked a lot what type of questions college coaches ask when they meet recruits for the first time. Sometimes it's just the basics, parents, where you're from, what do you like about the game? Where do you see yourself in the game? What are your dreams and goals? But oftentimes things will kind of get to a point where they'll say, hey, I came and watched you play and this situation came up. What were you thinking before that pitch came in? Or what were you thinking as that pitcher stepped off the mound? And so coaches want to know that you're taking the time to run through scenarios. Runners on first and second, there's 2 outs, ground ball, the catcher might come out throwing it to first. Don't try to make the play, the tough play at third. Just field it and get it across the diamond. Things that show that you have baseball awareness or baseball acumen. Also, if you have a runner on first and second and there's a base hit with 1 out and you have a 2 or 3 run lead, you don't need to try to throw that guy out at second. You need to keep that runner from first off of second or obviously third, if possible. So these are the types of discussion points that we don't really talk about with baseball recruiting. We all want to talk about metrics and analytics and things of that nature. I'm starting to notice that there's a lot of frustration from parents of the 26, 27, and to some degree the 28s. Obviously, this year's 27s, they're kind of on deck, but the 28s, what are you doing to prepare? This industry is about opportunity, providing opportunity. And what you as a family or a student athlete need to do is begin to prepare accordingly. Meaning, if you're a middle infielder, you need to understand middle infielders are a dime a dozen, but college coaches recruit up the middle. They recruit middle guys, center fielder, catcher, middle infielder. They recruit up the middle. And when I start to talk to parents about that, they'll say, well, my son's a third baseman. Well, I want you to understand, in college, some teams, they want to recruit all center fielders, and then they move accordingly based on arm strength, goes to right field, maybe a better bat goes to left field, et cetera. But they want speed in the outfield. And shortstops are typically the best athletes. So my point to you is, if you know that your student athlete is a corner guy, maybe doesn't have the foot speed, maybe doesn't have the arm strength, you need to be aware they need to have a really loud bat. So you need to prepare accordingly. Meaning, don't worry about hitting lessons, but worry about strength. Worry about individual approach. Eyes and hands working together. Bat to ball skills. Pitchers. Okay, we're so worried about velocity, but understand this. Now we're coming back to a world of strike throwers. And so what drills are you doing when you play catch? Are you playing catch with intent? Are you playing catch with a purpose? Do you have a target every time you throw a ball? Are your repetitions leading to quality retention? And so those types of topics now are what need to be discussed in more depth with families. Because when I'm working with parents, I will always say, if there's a recognized skill set, whether it's myself, a high school coach, a travel coach, obviously a college coach, if there's a recognized skill set, now they're going to start to go to the separators. And the separators often go to physicality/strength. Then there's baseball acumen and IQ. There's also that ability to be a resilient player, recognizing to focus on the next. So we have to start to work on those separators. And one of the big separators that gets lost in this entire process, I get a kick. And I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I have a family. They're from Texas, and they pay an exorbitant amount of money for recruiting. And the athlete's good. And, in days of yesterday, this young man probably could have been collected as a staff kind of arm. But, in today's world, with regard to the cap, you can't do that any longer. So that means you actually have to do a little due diligence with the coaches. But my point is, this young man doesn't have a plus secondary pitch. So not a lot of coaches want to have guys that just are a one-trick pony. And so this relies to, if you don't have a defensive tool, but you can hit the heck out of the ball, do you really want to be a DH in college? Is that really your goal? So my point is, as parents, you really want to have that understanding and recognize who your athlete is as an individual. We don't want to compare your student athlete's journey with anybody else's that has happened in the past, because that certainly is no longer applicable, and it's certainly now going forward a much more challenging environment for coaches that are paid, compensated to be competitive and win now. And they want to be able to put a team of athletes that will go out and represent their program, to the best of their abilities. So as high school parents, you have to start asking yourself, okay, where does my athlete currently fit today? If I had to base an evaluation from a recruiting perspective, where is my athlete today? First thing that needs to be done. Then the next discussion point is, what type of transcript do you have? How important are grades? Because and I mean this with complete sincerity, all of college baseball, including JUCO, NAIA, and NCAA, all coaches are trying to recruit elite talent. I asked Division III coaches, what are you looking for? I'm looking for guys that were on rosters, Division I, on the 40-man rosters, and now are being jettisoned and are looking for playing time. JUCOs, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for the JUCO, for the Division I pushbacks that are still freshmen or sophomore and have 3 or 4 years of eligibility left. And trust me, there's a lot of those guys. And so even the Division II guys, both NAIA and as well as NCAA, they're looking at the sheer volume. So now, as parents, are you going to try to force your way in here, or are you going to plan and prepare accordingly? Meaning, possibly, if your student athlete is going to be a 2026 graduate, are you going to look at the gap year? Are you going to consider the postgraduate year with the academic component? Are you just going to go and utilize the gap year to kind of mature mentally and physically, and then try to prepare to get in front of a college coach? Those are the questions that we need to be asking. And we need to discuss this with the college coaches, meaning if you're going to a camp, a college camp, or you're at a showcase, and a coach says, I like what I see, but I need to see a little bit more with his foot speed or size, strength. And then that's the time to ask that college coach, now, if I considered a postgraduate year, would that make me more appealing for your program? And if they say yes, okay, well, then obviously that's something to understand. Now, I have a family, a basketball family, and they're from Texas. And I worked with an older sibling with regard to baseball, and a younger sibling, several years younger, is a really outstanding basketball player, Division I caliber basketball player, and plays at a really top flight, high school program. But I got that athlete into a boarding school. Now, this summer, that athlete has been experiencing a much different level and caliber of recruiting and exposure, because in these worlds of postgraduate schools, boarding schools, prep schools, they're taking their talent directly to colleges, and they're playing and participating, much like college baseball does with team camps in the fall. Basketball does tournaments and games on certain campuses throughout the entire country. But the exposure, all the college head coaches are basically at these events. So this is why I'm saying to parents, it's time to start to look. You're investing time, but you want to make sure, for instance, you go to a baseball U in Connecticut, or you go to a Dirtbags in North Carolina, or a NorCal in California. They're doing camps on college campuses, meaning they're actually competing against similar caliber teams on a college campus. Now, that does two things. It gets parents and athletes to see campuses. It gets college staffs to see teams compete against similar level, but they're not individual camps. They're not individual showcases, meaning you don't have random athletes. It's kind of like-minded coaches with like-minded programs competing on college campuses, so that college coaches are able to evaluate on a apple to apple basis. And I think that is another dynamic. If you're going to play travel athletics, it's very important to know if your program is doing those types of events, whether that be in the summer or the fall, because now more than ever, college resources are now being spread out amongst all of summer collegiate baseball. And then they go to the big boy events that we've discussed in the past. But now they have these college team camps. And so you really want to ask your travel organization, are you participating in any team camps in the summer or the fall, primarily in the fall? And then you also want to know, do they have recruiting educational format programs? Because now you really need to understand that the pathway into college is no longer about, I'm going to go Division I. You got to get your foot in the door, and you have to play. And if you're not going to play, you need to understand, when that coaching staff says to you, we see you getting between the lines in a year or two, we have a plan for you. Are you going to be patient enough to recognize and understand that's going to require a lot of work? I think that's the best process by far. If a coach is willing to invest that time on you, and you want to make sure that that's accurate. It's not going to be, you want to make sure the coach and the staff is going to be there for several years while you're a student there. But it's really time for us to be more educative, more informative, and more honest and candid, so that you as a student athlete are finding your right fit. Understand that there are boys NCAA Division III going up to Division I, Division II going up to Division I, going down to Division III. There's NAIA going into NCAA. There's Division I going to JUCO. I've worked with two JUCO players this week, and one is going to a JUCO, an elite Division I JUCO, and another one is going to an elite Division II program. But you really have to have someone that understands your fit, not their fit. Just because somebody has a contact at Okie Dokie U doesn't mean that Okie Dokie U is good for you. You really have to understand this process is your journey, your career, your college experience, and you need to make it a priority to start doing your homework. Absolutely. Chris is right. Youth basketball is pretty much having the same issues as youth baseball. That is accurate. John, how are you tonight, John? And I agree with Coach Wells. You really have to understand the hard fact is getting on a field at the Division III level, whatever you may have considered a lower level, not that I believe that there was ever such thing as a lower level, but there's absolutely no way that any student athlete can be dismissive of a coach or a program if they are being assertive and aggressive with your student athlete and they have a strong interest in your athlete. If it's geographically and academically a fit, the baseball is all the same. You need to get between the lines. You need to create a resume, and you need to develop physically, mentally, and you need to develop habits as a college student. And college coaches take that very, very seriously. Now, I want to share something with parents, and I've discussed this over a year and a half ago, but it's really coming to fruition. And I think a lot of people that may be watching this now, especially from the Northeast or the Midwest, will agree. About 20, 25 years ago, hockey went down this same exact path. And a lot of parents were told, don't play high school sports. It's not worth it. You really, if you do play high school sports, you want to, basically go play junior hockey for 2 years and then go to college, regardless of the level of the division. And it was ultra expensive. You had parents dropping out of high school, their athletes dropping out of high school as sophomores in high school, paying unbelievable amounts of money, all in hopes of chasing the Division I or the hockey dream. And now we are seeing that kind of reemerging into a greater degree with regard to baseball. And there are a myriad of baseball academies and all of these things that are popping up. And we are spending ridiculous amounts of money in order to facilitate and hopefully have our student athletes' dreams come true. And I need to explain to parents the numbers at all levels of college baseball. And again, we just use that number of 50,000 athletes across all of college baseball. And we just start to plug in the reality. There's 7,000 athletes currently in the portal, baseball wise. They're not all going to find homes. So as a high school athlete, what do you have to offer that's different than the athletes that are current student athletes that are in a portal? And so you trying to reclass and go to an academy and just play baseball, we're kind of giving away our children's childhoods. And we're kind of neglecting these years that we get to interact with our children. And I don't really want to digress down that rabbit hole, but I will tell you that if you have a good high school program and your athlete is happy there, great. Let's create a plan. Let's create, a strength. We'll connect with strength trainers, skill set developers. Also, travel baseball. And I'm going to talk about what I call programs, real programs that have been established for decades. Ones that have, they're not just hanging up a shingle saying baseball lessons. These are men that have been in this industry for decades, and they are experienced, seasoned coaches, and they understand the word development, and they understand the word commitment. If you're fortunate enough to have an organization in your geographical area that kind of has those standards, rely on them for your evaluations, the honest, candid evaluations. And if they're saying to you, this is a school that fits, maybe it doesn't light up your mind, but at the same time, it's an in, and you're getting the opportunity to compete for an opportunity to play. And I wanted, a lot of Division III schools throughout New England, the Mid-Atlantic, all the way down to the South, where Emory, those types of schools, there's an academic component, and it's a really good balance for college athletics. And I want parents to understand youth sports, all sports. I know I focus a great deal of time on baseball and softball, is going to be gutted because this portal, this new wave of name, image, and likeness, these collectives, Title IX, all of these new facets of college athletics. We are no longer in the world of amateur athletes. And unfortunately, most parents and athletes think they're going to be making, all of this money. They have an opportunity to generate income at the NCAA level, but at the JUCO level and NAIA level, it's business as usual. And you're a college student athlete, and you have to compete for an opportunity. You have to be ready when your feet hit the ground, and recognize that this cycle of transfer portal is never going away. It's always been a part of college baseball, by the way. Just now, the rules are different. And the rules now are athletes can change year to year. So you may be doing great things at your school as a freshman or a sophomore. And unfortunately, if you're not continuing to prepare yourself, athletes can come in and take your place. And so that's really what we have to prepare for. Let's just talk about, Coach, do you think the shift in college baseball and the draft will be good for quality of baseball overall? Coach Ricks, thank you very much. Okay, and I'm going to say this because this is going to be my closing, and I'm not going to keep you too much longer tonight. One of the biggest things I've said to every family I've ever worked with over the last 38 years is, you do not want me to tell you what you want to hear. You want me to tell you what you need to hear when you or your student athlete need to hear it. And that is the critical foundational piece, whether it's your high school coaches, your travel coaches, somebody like myself. You need the truth. And the sooner that you hear, understand, and wrap yourself in your truth, the sooner you can begin to grow and develop. And I think that that's a really big part of this whole process moving forward. Now, I have a question that just came in, and I want to say thank you to everybody. I also want to remind parents, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. It's free. It doesn't cost you a dime. Okay, is there any push to try and get the Major League Draft back to June? Yes, there is discussion within the ABCA that just occurred while they were out at the College World Series, and I can tell you every single college coach in the country wants the draft to be moved back into June. And Major League Baseball wants to work with college baseball. I promise you, they're using college baseball as their short season and rookie ball. They want to make a concerted effort to help and work with college baseball. I believe that is going to be done probably by 2027. when the new collective bargaining agreement discussions begin. What about the 5 years of eligibility? That is something that most college coaches feel strongly will happen. And they feel that way because they feel like the NCAA just wants to wave the white flag. They don't want any further litigation. Bear in mind, there's a tremendous amount of litigation that is on deck with regard to the Title IX and the collective payments to the athletes of the past. So on the 5 years of eligibility, I believe that college NCAA will ultimately get to a 5th year of eligibility. I think that that's something that's going to happen. The other question that came in here, do I think that the shift in college baseball and the draft will be good for the quality of baseball overall? First of all, I am a passionate person on the sport of baseball. My days are consumed, much to my wife's chagrin. I still have a young son, 32-year-old, that still plays baseball. I think in order for the sport to grow, we must get back to realistic expectations and a realistic understanding of the skill that it takes, like how hard the game actually is at the higher levels. In other words, there is nothing, and I say this with all due respect, there is nothing, there is zero correlation between 6U and 14U baseball and high school and college. And then high school, you begin to develop those foundational pieces for hopefully college. But the jump from college to professional baseball is massive. We don't play organically enough. We play way too much organized baseball, meaning we leave much of our skill set development to practices, lessons, instruction, games, and we don't take enough individual approach or individual reps. And when I say that, maybe it's a game of catch with dad in the backyard. Maybe it's a game of wiffle ball, and I get a kick out of people who say wiffle ball is going to ruin your swing. Eye-hand coordination. I'm just telling you, other countries. My son played in Japan for 1 year, and he said to me, Dad, if you knew what they do over there as far as workout routines, drill work, and they go to exhaustive levels of skill set development. And we kind of just do it in 30-minute increments, 1 hour increments, 90-minute increments. I'm certainly not saying it has to be a day-long type of thing, but baseball at the college level and then as a professional level, I can tell you college baseball, much like professional baseball, it's a business. And when I say it's a business, it's a job, it's because you have to devote 40 to 50 hours a week to that skill, that baseball, whether it's practice, games, side work, classroom environment where you're talking about game situations, cadences, signs, pickoffs. So yeah, when you get to college, you have 3 full-time jobs. You have your athletics, your academics, and your sleep. And if you try to give 8 to all 3 of those, there's not a lot of social time. So my point to you is the industry as a whole, it's fun. It's something that young kids are very passionate about. But the number one thing is we're very dismissive, and we're being told that I can find you a home. And I have been doing this for close to 4 decades, and I can tell you, you really need a plan. You need a plan. And if you don't have a plan and you're just leaving it all up to, most good travel programs have people working within their program that are talking to the individual families, gathering information, and then utilizing that information and creating a plan. And then you as a family take that information and are proactive. You can't be reactive anymore with regard to recruiting. Now, a lot of college coaches now are waiting until that window of that completion of the junior year, that rising senior summer. There's physical maturation that's should be much better than it was last year. There's skill set development that should have occurred, and they're getting a clearer understanding of who that athlete is capable of being. Let's see. Parents got to realize. Right. So, Chris, I'm glad you brought this up. And for those of you that don't see the comments, I have a list of comments. Parents have to realize that dropping athletes out at high school and community they grew up in sports academies hurts development. Academics and caring about your community is part of development. Now, this is something, Chris, you're 2 for 2 tonight. A lot of college coaches now are talking about, a commitment to community, a commitment to team, a commitment to the we as opposed to the commitment to the me. Now, why is that important? Because when you represent a college program, you're often representing a community, a campus, obviously, a student body and faculty. And so there has to be an awareness. And I always believe both of my sons were raised in Auburn, Massachusetts. And they played all sports and they were an active participant against the local communities that they competed with and against in all sports. And as they got through high school, obviously those communities had the high schools and there was awareness of who was really good, who was talented, et cetera. This process is really about a time in your life as a family. This is about your student athlete's window of opportunity. And so I know many, many families, and you can find their stories on my YouTube channel, that look back and say, I wish I took more time to appreciate my campus, my community, my coaches, my teammates. It went by so quickly. I wish I had better study habits. Because here's a news flash. While we are all getting into this name, image, and likeness, I can tell you that academics still play a vital role, and we don't hear that enough. But having the ability to create, I'm going to be repetitive, your brand, meaning when you look back on your brand as a parent, your children, what type of individuals are they? What type of young students are they? What type of athletes are they? Are they enjoying themselves? The biggest growth area in youth sports is not lessons, it's not travel teams, it's not equipment, nothing to do with that. It's actually mental performance. And before you say, you already talked about that, I'm not talking about for the student athletes. I'm talking about for parents. It's frustrating. This process is going to frustrate parents, and you're going to get areas of rage. My athlete deserves better. My guy's better than that guy. My girl's better than that girl. And you start to get into that competitive mindset. And so you are always looking at somebody's trying to be hurtful, spiteful to your athlete, when in reality, you need to have that check, that look in the mirror and say, okay, am I in neutral? Am I looking at this with clear mind and clear thoughts? And what's the reality of the opportunities? What's the reality of my student athlete skill sets? What is the reality of my student athlete's future ceiling or growth opportunities? So parents and student athletes, this is about surrounding your athletes as well as families with good mentors. Coach Wells at Baseball U, all of these great coaches, Rob at NorCal, Jack Crescent at the Knights, Andy with the Dirtbags. Those types of programs, those people are great life mentors. They've been through the process. They give you honest feedback. You need those types of individuals in your children's lives on an ongoing basis, not just during their athletic years of competition. So I'm going to end this by giving you, as parents, some of the most sage advice that was given to me probably about 10 years ago as my youngest son was leaving Vanderbilt. And that is, athletics are a part of your student athlete's life. They are not who they are. Their identification is not that of a baseball athlete, softball athlete, football, basketball athlete. They are a young woman or man that is a human that is seeking and striving to be the best that they are capable of being. They are going to fall, they are going to fail. They just simply need to get up and they need your support. You need to understand as parents the college process. There's multifacets to that. You don't want to try to fit, square pegs in round holes. And so these types of formats where I see all of these questions, and my gosh, I get so many of them during the week. And I'm going to end on this topic. I have parents that ask me repeatedly, what is it that you do with the 7 or 8 families? And I'm simply going to say this to you. For 90% of people that I interact with, just my guidance with regard to here's some ideas, here's some suggestions, things like that. That's what you're going to get with a membership that's $20 a month. And $20 a month, I just finished a pitching course. I'm in the middle of a hitting course. The Lion's Den, my boy, my son and his partners at the Lion's Den are going to be providing pitching content. Trey Hanneman, hitting content. Going to be working with Rick, catching content. Tamara Seaman, mental performance. Cressy, Fairchild, they're going to be talking about strength and nutrition. So and I'm working with a company right now on hydration, patches, actual wearables for hydration. All of that for $20 a month. That's what most parents need. I work with higher level student athletes that aspire to trade athletics for academics. That's my forte. That's my niche. I'm a firm believer. I did it with my sons. I believe in trading athletic ability because the athletic rabbit is going to fall eventually. They're going to stop eventually, whether that's after high school, after college. You may have a brief professional career, but at some point, our athletes have to be adults. They have to become spouses. They'll become parents. They'll become employers or employees. And so I look to help athletes really reach their ceiling with regard to that academic threshold. That's my forte. That's what I try to do. I try to find the right fits, whether that be through post-grad or boarding schools, high-level academic schools, where athletes can become a full participant with regard to the college campus. That's what I do. And I do that one-on-one with families. So that's what I do. That's to answer all the questions that have come in this week. You want opportunities in a lot of them. The parents need to pour into their athlete more academics just as they pour money. So I want parents to take this away from tonight. And I've gone over I told my wife I would only do 30 minutes. Please, before you go, please, share this if you're on Facebook. Share this video if you're on Twitter or X. Please, if you're not on YouTube, please go over to YouTube, Coach Beede, hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe. If you don't feel you want to be a member, that's completely fine, but please engage with the video. I want parents to understand this one last point, which I've probably said now 4 times. You don't have to love school. Your student athletes may just like school and they find it to be, a lesser of 2 evils. I got to play sports, so therefore I have to go to school. I want you to understand academics always will pay dividends. It might not be immediate, but over the course of time. You want to be a coach. Guess what? You want to be a college coach, you have to have a degree. You have to, in some cases, you have to have a master's degree. You want to utilize sports to help carry and teach your athletes certain life disciplines, time management, daily routines, how to compete, how to dust themselves off and compete. Look, if there's somebody in my way and they're better than me, I have to become better than them. So whether you think you can or not, you have to work harder. You have to work harder in the classroom. If you're a C+ guy, get a B. If you're a B guy, get an A. Start small, work yourself up. Remember, every single day is a brick. That brick is used to build your student athlete's foundation. one brick at a time, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month at a time. This whole revelation of recruiting services and instant gratification, that's not how it works. A college coach is not going to take a phone call from Walter Beede. Hey, you got to take this guy. He's really good. Okay, well, I'm going to take him. No. What kind of student is he? What are the parents like? What is he? What is his interests? Is he versatile? Is he a two-way guy? Is he a hockey guy? They want to know shape, substance of the athletes, not just strictly skill set. So I'm going to continue to do these on Tuesdays. I really appreciate the people that take the time to send me questions. If you have a question you want to email me, it's walter@coachbeede.com. Baseball Blue Book. Download a profile. Mom, dad, let the athletes create a profile. If they're young, they don't have a cell phone, don't worry about it. Don't put a cell phone on there. But let them get engaged with the community. A lot of teams now are creating profiles in the Blue Book. A lot of groups, whether it's baseball, travel baseball teams, and they want to announce hitting day, fielding day, pitching day. All of that now is available, as well as opportunity for you to have your videos evaluated, and I can endorse the athletes, and I can kind of give you some suggestions and kind of, pathways your athlete can take to get a little bit better. Baseball Blue Book, all new and improved. It's on the App Store, Google and Apple. Also, make sure you're having a great summer. It's okay to take a vacation. It's okay to go fishing. This is summer vacation. There's no school. We're almost here on July 4th. It's okay to enjoy yourselves as a family. You can put a bat and ball down. You're not going to lose anything. You're not going to get worse. Just look at each day as the gift that you get to become better in every capacity, not just baseball. Have a great week in baseball. This Thursday, I think we're either going to have Ohio State or VCU, one of the two, join us. And I want to encourage you to watch those coaches' corners. Really, they provide really valuable insight on what the coaches are thinking today in today's world with regard to the portal and the high school athlete. Thank you very much, and keep your questions coming. I really appreciate it. Till next Tuesday, have a great week in baseball.